As the mighty thespian J-Lo once said in the cinematic masterpiece, Geely, it's turkey time. Gobble, gobble. It's Turkey Day here on Attack of the Killer Podcast.
Attention planet Earth and beyond. Stay tuned for Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 That's time for the show. Yay.
What?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody! It's time once again for Attack of the Killer Podcast. I am your host, Insane Mike, and this is episode 327 called Turkey Day. This is one of my favorite topics because we will be discussing films that are considered turkeys. That's right, films the films for this episode are either considered bad films or about bad filmmakers. Well, some people may consider bad filmmakers.
Those people are wrong.
Exactly, I agree. Now, if this is your first time listening to Attack of the Killer Podcast, we are a horror movie podcast, a group of friends. We get together, we hang out, we discuss films. We discuss films within a particular topic. So we're just friends hanging out. So, we're going to speak openly, freely. There may be spoilers, just to let you know. God forbid we spoil any of these cinematic masterpieces for you this evening. Now, if you like our show, I ask you to join our Attack of the Killer podcast family called The Attackers. When you become an attacker, you get all kinds of extra content and perks for supporting our show. You can get our bonus episodes, like our upcoming one where we talk about movies we love showing new people or love forcing people to watch. That's a great one that's coming up. You guys got to check that one out. Some great film recommendations for the holiday season are in that one, so you should sign up now. You can also get our YouTube shows. You can get original art by me called Mikey's Monsters. You can get your own certificate, membership card, and sticker, and or even our official Attack of the Killer podcast t-shirt. But wait, there's more! You can pick films for us to watch on our Patreon Picks episodes or for our watch parties. You can even get shout-outs on the show. First off, I just want to shout out our newest attacker, Scott Rebane. Yay! Woo! Welcome. Scott, thanks for becoming an attacker. You are now amongst a select few of amazing, wonderful people like these people right here.
Timothy Leonard, Roman Doppelfeld, Larry Watanabe, Brett J. Royer, Seth Key, Jessica Irish, Chris Cook, Brian Gotzel, Stefan Sitter, Brandy Moore, Andrew Mahler, Rod Hutchinson, Carmen DeHague, Abraham Ariano, Andrew Bentler, Casey Kelderman, Tony Miller, Mike Clayton, Rose Talashoma, Abe Kirshner, Lisa Cavalier, Holly Berg, Bill Fisher, Greg Dedrick, Sam Lenz, Garth Jacobson, Brett White, Tiffany DeWeese, and Scott Rebane.
Man, he still can do it in one breath, guys. Come on, we need more attackers. More. Just so we can make Brian pass out.
I like Sam said he's going to change his name.
Let's kill Brian. If that isn't motivation, forget all those other perks. So you too can be on that list. All you got to do is go to jointheattackers.com. You pick the tier that best suits you for the stuff that you want and become an attacker today. Again, that's jointheattackers.com. And now it's time to introduce you to the podcast crew. He hates going into the kitchen when they're cooking the turkey because it smells foul. Tad, everybody.
That was an easy one. Hey, guys, thanks for listening.
He's in charge of the side dishes. However, he doesn't call them side dishes. He calls them peripheral dishes. Brian!
Gobble, gobble, motherfuckers.
He's a dedicated musician. He plays drums in several bands. So he's dedicated to his favorite part of the turkey called the drumsticks. Jason!
Heck yeah. I always call dibs on those. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening and tuning in. Appreciate you being here.
Is that seriously your favorite part of the turkey?
No, gross.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to pull a switcheroo and just say the gizzards.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have. That would have been way funnier. Oh, well, can we start over?
No.
All right, then. If not, in that case, I'm going to turn it over to Tad. Here's Tad with What We Watched.
Well, if it's Thanksgiving, that means we're coming close to the end of the year, and that hopefully means that some of you have been watching some year-enders for the big episode. Jason, what have you watched?
Rear Enders.
Yeah. No,
Year
Back to water
Enders. I'm
power
sorry.
again.
no, and no. No to all of that. I've seen one, guys. One more this 2 weeks, and at least it's one for the rear ender. Oh, God.
That's going to be a thing
I
now.
hope not. And I chose it. It got priority because Tad spoke so highly of it. I finally saw, and got to watch it with Tiffany too, and she stayed awake for the whole thing. That's how good it was. I
Nice.
know. Abigail. It was so freaking good. Do you guys know that? It's good. It's like actually good. I loved it because obviously all the things, but then like you're like, oh, okay, cool, it's about over. Oh wait, no, there's still like 30 minutes left. What could? Oh my God, it keeps changing and getting more crazy, and it's like, what a cool movie. So yeah, I really like it. I see why it made your possibly top list we did for a bonus a while back, and I can definitely see why it's a contender. It was awesome. And then that, just more Ted Lasso. That's in theme of the bonus episode coming up next week. Yeah, it's something I do want to show people, and it's not horror, but it's something that I'll always try to get people to watch because it's the greatest show ever made. That's what I watched.
I mean, if you have a crush on Ted Lasso, I do on Dan Stevens.
Yeah, see?
Awesome in Abigail. So, yeah. Mike, how about you? What have you watched?
What I have watched recently, again, also trying to pad out the Rear Ender
Nope.
episode. Damn it. I watched one of those Hulu originals that actually I feel transcends the Hulu original because I really, really dug it.
I'm curious to see if this is the one that I've been interested in watching.
Mr. Crockett?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
But I did watch that.
That's one that I've heard some things about.
Yeah.
And?
I watched Mr. Crockett, and I really loved it. I feel like, give it a few thousand more dollars, it could have been a theatrical film franchise. I really dug it. The guy who plays Mr. Crockett does an amazing job. So basically, it's about this tape of this children's show, kind of like, I don't know, kind of like Sesame Street mixed with Mr. Rogers, mixed with like Blue's Clues,
Captain
I don't
Kangaroo.
know, Captain Kangaroo, yeah, kind of in that vein of children's programming. But the tape, the Mr. Crockett character is like this creature from another dimension that kidnaps children through the tape, and it's just really cool. It was really a really fun flick. I highly recommend it. Very colorful, some cool creatures in it that, like, once you get into his dimension, his little puppet creatures are now like hideous monsters, and just a lot of fun. And that's about
so
it.
maybe one
What's that?
that is this one that you like. If people don't know, like when we do this by rear end episode, we I at least I do. I bug everyone. And I'm like, what do I need to watch?
I'm
Like,
about to
what
send
are
you guys
things-
that message, yeah.
Yeah, which I sent Brian
Yeah,
last night. 'Cause- yeah. So would you say Mr. Crockett should be added to my list?
It's one I would love for you guys to see. Yeah, I'd say so.
As if
Again,
you think it'll make your top 10?
no spoilers, but yeah,
Maybe.
yeah,
It's
maybe.
good enough is all I'm saying.
It was for me, and I think just his performance, the way they handled the theme of the movie. It's also, I love the color scheme of the movie, the way it was shot and everything. I just go into it knowing it's one of those Hulu originals. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So the one I was curious to watch was Carved.
Oh yeah,
The pumpkin monster, because
I see-
anything
keep seeing
for a
that pop
pumpkin
up, too.
monster.
yeah. I watched the trailer. That looked interesting, but yeah. So, but that's it for the fun part. I also recently watched Strangers Chapter 1.
Yeah.
Mediocre at
So
best.
not on your list.
Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
not going to make the list. That's about the best I could say. It's just mediocre at best. There's moments of
Rennie
motivation.
Harlan.
I know. That's the most disappointing part, right? It's like a Rennie Harlan film and just didn't do it for me. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt it's not horrible. It's not bad. It's
saying, I
not
liked
like
it more than what
ruining
you were
the
saying, but,
franchise or anything. It just didn't offer anything new or different. But even as following what has come before with the franchise felt lesser than. It basically feels mostly just like the first film, but not as well done, in my opinion. It didn't feel as suspenseful or creepy or terrifying to me as that first film. You know, for me personally, that's just a hard thing to live up to in the first place. So it's unfortunate but then there's just moments of character motivation that didn't make sense to me. Just kind of felt like the pacing was off a little bit. Like the first time she has a scared moment, she just like panics and runs straight for a closet. It just seemed a little over the top reaction to me. Anyway,
That
So,
was
yeah,
a
wasn't
movie
a fan.
that just never needed to go to a franchise. That first
Yeah,
one is
that's
so
kinda-
good, and it should have just been left to stand alone.
I always felt that way too, but I really liked the second one a lot, though. I thought they did a great job with the second one, and
Yeah.
the fact that's like I go into the second one thinking, how can you do a sequel to a movie that is just a perfect standalone movie? And the fact that the themes are there, but they did something different with it, I think really helped. Where this one's just kind of back to the formula of the first film.
It's just such a strange decision. It's like when they redid Cabin Fever and used the same screenplay and just
Yeah.
recast it, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
And
Like, it's fine. Like, it's fine how it is, I know money's always a motivator, but like, this didn't make money, so now they have these two other movies. What the fuck are they going to do with them?
Yeah, I don't know. The other ones, are they also Rennie Harlan or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he filmed all three like back to back to back. So
And maybe if you film them back to back to back, maybe the next ones will be better. I'm not going to give up. Not going to give up on it. I'll see the other ones if they get released, since this one didn't do much business. But
yeah, who knows if they just throw them on streaming, what they'll do. But
yeah. The last one I watched is Time Cut.
I saw that on your
Yeah.
on your letterbox. I'm curious about it.
Yeah. Well, did you see Totally Killer?
Yes.
Then you're good.
So this is like
This is
if
just
mom
the
says
same.
we have Totally Killer at home.
It's the same goddamn movie, like literally, except for she goes back in time to the early 2000s instead of the 90s, so it is even more bland than Totally Killer. I mean, it's just, and then I'm just I know how Jason feels about time travel in movies. This one would really piss you off, I think, because you want to talk about conveniency of wrapping everything up into a nice little happy bow and conclusion at the end of the film, to where like we have to have a happy ending to this movie to the point where we're just going to even break our own time rules that we set up at the beginning of the movie. It like pays no attention to the rules of time travel. That makes even logical sense, but within the rules of its own film that they set up right at the beginning of the movie. It's like we say these things like this is how time travel works, and then it's like, well, I guess it really doesn't by the time we get to the end. Anyway, that's what I watched.
All right, that leaves you, Brian. What have you watched?
Yeah, well, a couple of weeks ago, a friend came over to watch some movies, and it was right after Tony Todd had died, so we watched Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh, which I'd never seen, and I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd. Realistically, it's a 2, maybe 2.5 star movie at best. I thought it wasn't very good, but the extra point comes from Tony Todd because, goddamn, that guy was just awesome. But yeah, I hated that they demystified him and gave him this stupid little MacGuffin that could kill him. And I mean, even though he kind of isn't gone at the end, really, it's just no. It made it, that first movie is so interesting and unique and deep. You know, there's a lot of subtext there. The movie has a lot to say, and this just turns it into another slasher franchise. So meh. We also watched, going back to the bonus episode of things you like to show people. I watched Lam Gai Kai's The Cat for the first time. The same director as Riccio and Seventh Curse, and I'd had this on my hard drive forever, and I just keep forgetting to watch it. But it's a lot of fun. It's like a weird Hong Kong sci-fi horror action movie version of Disney's The Cat from Outer Space.
Oh my God, it is the Cat from Outer Space, isn't it?
Yeah. Jason will be pleased that I finally got around to this one. I watched Transformers 1.
Yay!
That popped up on streaming, and I really, really loved it. It's super fun. It's it's the origin story of some of the main, Optimus Prime and Megatron specifically, and Bumblebee's in there, and Alita 1 too. But it's so much eye candy. Like, you don't need to know anything about Transformers going in. It's a great thing to introduce new fans, and obviously it's more aimed at children, so it's to get the younger fans in so they can buy toys for the next 50 years and be broke. But there's so much, like, in the character designs are great. There's so many fun, like, just in the crowd scenes. If you're enough of a Transformers nerd, you'll just start recognizing color patterns, even if it's somebody moving so fast you can't even tell, like, you don't get a good look at their face, or you can't really for sure tell. It's just like gives you that dopamine rush of like, oh, I recognize the colors from this toy I had as a kid, and it just, it's so much fun, and it's a beautiful movie too. The animation is really well done.
Oh yeah, Simon and I just also recently watched it, and you guys would be so proud of him. Like, the whole time you talk about, recognizing background, the whole time through that whole movie's like, oh my God, is that Brawl? Is that Brawl? Or is like, oh my God, that's Ratchet. Like, that's coming from my son. I'm like, oh, I'm so proud.
We did it.
I watched Shrigala, which is the Indonesian Friday the 13th ripoff, except it's also a treasure hunting action movie and a bunch of other weird things. Because when you watch an Indonesian horror or exploitation movie, you don't just get one movie, you get like 16 different movies in one. They're all just bonkers. Like, I've never watched an Indonesian movie and felt bored by it. They're just crazy. I watched a Japanese, so I just brought up Midnight Pulp the other day and thought, well, I'm just going to pick some random thing that I've never heard of before and watch that. I'm in the mood for something just completely new. So I watched one called Star of David, Beautiful Girl Hunter, about this guy who he was born out of his mom being raped by a serial killer, and later on in life he finds out who his real father is, and decides he's going to try to one-up the old man. And it's a lot like Salo in that it's super gross. Like, there's some really nasty, rough stuff in it, but it's gross with a purpose and definitely has some stuff to say. So it's using the shock value to make you think rather than just being like, here, look at this parade of atrocities. Although there is a scene where the guy blows his load on a picture of Nazi war crimes. So there's that. And then
Only you.
Yeah. So to wrap things up, from the things I was just saying 2 seconds ago, it should be readily apparent to anyone who's even a brand new listener that movies do not rattle my cage easily. But a couple of weeks ago, I watched a movie that fucked me up for like a solid week.
Ooh.
Like, I was
Here we go, Jason.
terrified the entire time watching it. And when I woke up the next morning, I woke up like shaking, and the whole, like, I just could hardly even function for not being able to think about anything else for several days after. Threads. Now this is it's one I'd known by reputation for a long time. A lot of people know it by reputation, and it's not an obscure thing. It's a British TV movie made by the guy who would go on to direct The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston. And it won a bunch of awards when it came out, but it's a warning against nuclear war. It takes place in Sheffield, England, which is a big manufacturing town, so it would be a target if there were a big war like that. And Russia and the United States get into a pissing match over airspace in Iran, which, boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? And nukes start getting lobbed back and forth, and one of them falls on Sheffield, but there's a fully global exchange. It's like 3,000 megatons get dropped around the world. So basically the whole planet is killed. And as you're watching these people who are the survivors struggling through the wreckage, they're walking past all these burned up corpses and things, and you get to realize that those burned up corpses are the lucky ones. And if there was a war like that, you would not want to survive it. It's rough. I mean, and it's not, there are some grotesque images in it, obviously. There has to be if you're going to show that realistically. But they when they went to Sheffield to film it, the city council was getting ready to level. There's a area of I think it was almost a square mile of housing estates and old factory buildings and things that had all been nobody lived there anymore. Basically, this huge chunk of the town had just been completely abandoned, and it was going to be demolished anyway to make room for new stuff. And so the town council, who were very pro the message they were trying to get across of we need to disarm nukes, told them, hey, we're going to ruin all these buildings. We're going to tear all this shit down, so do what you want. So they let them blow shit up, smash cars through buildings, tear walls out, just anything. And so it's so realistic because it's not all this goofy soundstage shit with styrofoam rocks. Anytime they needed destruction, they got to show real destruction, and the impact is it's unreal. And I think everyone should watch this movie. It is not an easy thing to watch. Like I said, it fucked my head up for a week after I watched it, and I'm still thinking about it even now. Kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies, but it's important. It's got and powerful, and God, nukes should go away.
And it's called what again?
Threads. Yeah, there's a Blu-ray from Severin. That's what I bought it years ago when it came out, and it just sat on my shelf, and I never got around to it. And then, because of recent things in the news, I thought, hey, this would be a good time to absolutely destroy my psyche. And threw it in. And I'm pretty sure it's still in print, and it's got the big Black Friday sale coming up, so I'm sure it'll be dirt cheap. So everyone should check it out. It is on Tubi, but this is one time where I'm going to say don't watch it on Tubi, because having it be interrupted with ads for laundry detergent and shit would just spoil the effect. It's something you need to sit down and watch all the way through.
It might be on Shudder too. I know it was at one time.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking I haven't woken up shaking in a long time, so I was looking at my calendar and figuring out which weekend I wanted to ruin, and maybe I'll pick it up at the Severin sale.
Yeah, all the things I said about how bad it made me feel, that should be taken as the highest recommendation. Because if a movie can mess me up that bad, it's got a fucking punch to it.
But that oddly has sold me on watching it.
Yeah. I was talking about it at work, and one of my coworkers was like, oh, that sounds awesome. I want to see it. I'm like, all right. So I loaned him my Blu-ray, and we went to see Reverend Horton Heat this last Friday. And when we got out of the concert and I turned my phone back on, I had a text from him saying, fuck you, that made me feel things I didn't even know I could feel.
Oh boy. You ready, Jason?
Yeah.
Let's do a double feat. Let's do that one. together. Okay.
Double feature. What else would you even watch with that?
Oh, and Man Behind the Sun too, like we
Oh,
talked about.
okay. Oh, yeah, of course. Perfect. Yeah.
Bonus.
You can watch Threads and be horrified, and then calm yourself down with a little bit of real human autopsy footage.
That's bad when that's the palate cleanser.
Right.
I thought you were trying to kill me with this episode, let alone thinking up more.
I wouldn't do that to you.
We could just do an episode called Misery Dirge. And just
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, hey Tad, what have you been watching?
Funny that we both watched. I watched Candyman: Farewell to Flesh for the first time as well. When I heard about Tony Todd, I didn't want to just throw on Candyman. I'm like, this is a good excuse to watch this movie I've owned on Blu-ray and have never watched. I've owned it for like 2 years. I honestly was like going in thinking this is gonna suck, and because I've heard that first one's great, second one's not great, and third one's really bad. And I thought this was perfectly fine. But like you said, it's a sequel. So like, how many times can you count on your hands that a sequel is like just as good or better than the original? So I thought it was okay. But didn't love it. Not perfect, but it was a good way to sort of celebrate Tony Todd because he was the best part of the movie.
Mm-hmm. He's usually
then I
the
got
best
to
part of whatever he's in.
Yes, absolutely. Elevates everything he's in, including all the Final Destination movies. And yeah, he's awesome. I watched Heretic, the new Beck and Woods movie. I got to see it at Film Scene with Beck and Woods and a producer from the movie.
Nice.
Really loved it. Really loved it. It's my favorite of theirs now. Shot right to the top. It's so smart and well written. And I had no idea where it was going. I think they just found the perfect balance working, not the huge blockbuster of 65. This was just like right in their wheelhouse. It's, like I said, very smart. Hugh Grant is fucking unreal in this. If the Academy had any balls, they'd nominate him, but they won't. But he is the perfect casting for this. And just hearing their insight on it and getting their Q&A just added so much more to it. Fantastic. If it's still in your theater, go see it because it's really good. Jason didn't mention, but we both watched Over the Top and Mac and Me in theater. That was fun. I also got to see Planes, Trains, and Automobiles for like the millionth time in a theater, which is always fun. Crowd loves it, eats it up. For another podcast, I rewatched Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson biopic. Love it. Always makes me sad, but it's really great. Paul Dano is so fantastic in it. I went back to Film Scene the next weekend, which saw the new, speaking of Vinegar Syndrome or Boutique Labels, I don't think we said Severin, but saw the new Street Trash in 35 millimeter.
I'm excited for that. I've heard it's great.
Oh. I didn't realize it was already done. I just thought it was in the making.
It's streaming actually on Screenbox and Strangely, and you can like rent it on Prime for like $5 or something. Got to talk to Ross up at Film Scene, who's like the nicest dude and so awesome.
Oh,
and
yeah, I love him.
I learned that this 35 millimeter print is the only 35 millimeter print. It was shot in 35 millimeter in like South Africa. And then he said they did the post in digitally and then put it back to 35, which is weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just one 35 millimeter print, and they like overnighted it from Tarantino's New Beverly to Iowa City.
Wow.
Oh.
And then it goes from Iowa City to like some theater in Michigan. It's like Iowa City is like one of like 5 theaters that's going to be showing it in 35 millimeter.
That's awesome.
And if you've never been to Late Shift at the Grindhouse, Ross always puts together like a half-hour trailer reel before the movie.
Yeah.
If you put
which
one
I
of
did
them
not
on
think
a
was
goddamn weekend.
I know, right?
It was Friday night.
Oh, wow, shit. I thought those were always on like Wednesday or something.
If they have special occasions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
this one was a late shift too.
You said it's a Screenbox thing, which has me hopeful then that it might make its way to Midnight Pulp eventually, because they've started sub-licensing some of the Screenbox original stuff. So,
which is sort of weird with this one because it's directed by, I think it's Ryan Coogler or whoever did Fried Berry, and produced by like all the people who do Joe Bob, the Last Drive-In on Shudder, and somehow it ended up on Screenbox. And Brad Miska, I think, is a producer, but it didn't end up on Shudder. It ended up on Screenbox.
Yeah, that's weird.
And he does these like half-hour trailer reels. Well, I asked him, I'm like, "Are we going to do one tonight? Because it's 35 millimeter." And he's like, "Yeah, but the trailers are going to be like really not fitting with the movie because I just have to go dig through the archives and find 35 millimeter trailers." So it was like a very, very strange mix of movies that had nothing. I think there's only like one horror movie. It was Alien vs. Predator Requiem. That was the only like horror trailer we saw. We saw some Steven Seagal trailers. It was fun. I could not be more sad on a Friday night. 35 millimeter, and there was like 6 of us there. And I did win a free porno, which was cool, because they always give away stuff at the beginning. They make it a whole thing.
Yep.
And they did show it Wednesday too, so that could have, maybe they had more people Wednesday who are used to college students who are used to coming. But the rare occasion that he does them on Fridays, I try to make it up there. And I didn't like the movie. No, I was just not a fan. It was weird. The tone was really, really weird. It tried to. It was like
the original is so normal.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
but
the original's not.
So they say the directors come out and said like this isn't a remake, it's a sequel. I guess it could live in the same world. It's just like this group of people, and every one of them has like fits into like their cliche, and they're in like it's like in the future, and the world's in an apocalypse, and this bad politician is trying to remove the homeless using it's not triox, it's not the Viper. It's not that, it's something else. I won't spoil it because you guys are gonna watch it, but I just the humor wasn't for me. The guy who plays Fried Berry is in it, and he's the highlight. He's called 2-Bits in this. And he has an imaginary friend that is like this little rubber puppet that is voiced by the director. And it's just like the puppet says like off the wall shit, but it's like it felt like it was trying too hard. Like he was the only one that could see it, and it would say like, like I'm gonna fuck you in the ass and like stupid little things, and just I don't know. I wasn't going in expecting it to be groundbreaking, but I just did not. And the deaths were cool, but they look straight from Street Trash, which I guess is good. They just like the blues and yellows and greens and the bubbly skins and stuff.
Sweet.
But like, it just felt like weird dialogue getting to those points, and it definitely wore its low budget on its sleeve. And I'm like, I don't really get why they shot this in 35 millimeter or why we're seeing it, because it didn't. I don't know. It wasn't visually a stunning film. It felt like a straight to streaming movie. But you guys hopefully you guys dig it more than I did. I will jump through the next 4 movies I watched yesterday and not give many reviews because they might end up being on my list. Strange Darling, that is one I would say everybody on this show should check out.
Where's that at?
I watched it. I think it's. I have to look here because I watched it on Plex, but I think it's like you can rent it wherever. I'm not sure if it's streaming free anywhere.
Okay.
But I don't want to spoil anything on this one. Here, the one-line description: nothing is what it seems when a twisted one-night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree. So it's available like everywhere to rent for $5, Apple TV, Amazon, YouTube, all of that. But it's not streaming anywhere for free quite yet because it's still pretty new. But that would be one out of this list I would recommend. VHS Beyond. I thought that was fun. I think, Mike, have you seen that one?
Yeah. I think it was on the last What We Watched. I brought that one up.
It's sort of cool that like this time they went with like a theme. Alien. I is a return because the last couple haven't been for me.
Same.
but this one was good. Smile 2, I hated the first Smile. Not hated, I just didn't like it as much as everyone else, but was disappointed by
I
it.
wasn't the only one.
And Smile 2, I really liked. I thought
Okay.
Smile 2 was a huge jump up. It's sort of, it focuses less on the smile aspect and more of like this girl who's a famous pop star going into a like mental spiral. And she is so good. I have to look and see what her name is because she is so fantastic in this. Naomi Scott, Sky Riley. She plays Sky Riley. She was fantastic in this. Just for her performance alone is worth it. The poor girl was probably exhausted filming this movie because she's just constantly screaming and crying and scared. But I really thought this was a huge step up from the first one. I'm glad I watched it. And then I watched one that
streaming yet?
I think it's on Peacock or Paramount.
Peacock.
One of those two.
Cool. Yeah, I've been looking forward to that because I actually really like the first one, which is weird because normally I don't like newer movies in that vein, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, this one was really, and there's some gnarly scenes, but like I think it did a really good job story-wise. I just was totally vested in this story, and that, like I said, the lead performance is great. And then the final movie I watched that I think a few people on this show will be stoked about was Frogman.
Yes.
Nice. Yay.
That was really great. I didn't put two and two together until I listened to The Wrong Podcast Died. They do like this thing about Salute Your Shorts, and they talk about short films, and they talked about this one called the Ballad of Squirt Reynolds, the Bloody Ballad of Squirt Reynolds, which is a short we played at Snake Alley a few years ago where a killer is a slasher and he wears a Burt Reynolds mask. And I was like, I remember that. That was so much fun. I looked up the director. He also did one that won Best Horror in like 2016 called When Susurrus Stirs. It's absolutely gross and disgusting. And I'm like, cool, checking out his IMDb. He's worked on a ton of movies in like camera and post and stuff. And then I'm looking and I'm like, what else has he directed? Frogman. Oh, now I'm way more hyped because I love this guy's shorts.
Yeah.
And Frogman was a blast.
Sort of local-ish too. He's from Minneapolis.
Yeah, and this one was a blast. It's pretty much Blair Witch with a giant frogman, but that's not a bad thing. It was fantastic. The frogman is creepy. I love when found footage is used right, and this was done right. Very cool. Love
Sam
Frogman.
Casey
Check that
on,
one out too.
Screams from the Basement did a really good interview with him.
Yes,
Sounds
yeah.
like a
Go
fun
listen
dude.
to all the shows on our network that revolve around this director. So that's what I watched.
All right. Thanks, Tad. Okay. So, Turkey Day. Time to get into some juicy movies. Tad, what's our first one?
Comes all the way from 1982. It is Night Beast.
From another galaxy. From another world. Comes the embodiment of fear.
What the hell was that?
Night Beast. Terror from beyond. A high-tech warrior from a distant planet. A killing machine with a taste for human flesh. A community abandoned in a code of silence.
Wicker never even called the state. They don't even know we have a bad situation here.
A love affair.
You know you're a very attractive girl, Lisa.
Two people brought together by the urgency of the moment. Two people torn apart by the savage fury of Night Beast.
I'm sorry, Jamie. There was nothing that could be done.
The most vicious creature to ever span the intergalactic void has come to pay its respects. This is the story of how the little people answer the big questions. the movie that will change the face of modern science fiction cinema. Night Beast. Terror from Beyond.
Man, if I was listening to that trailer, I would have been excited for it.
This is the story of how the little people answer the big questions. The fuck does that even mean?
So you are a hardcore fan of certain type of cinema. When I can sit here listening to that trailer and tell you that is the Trauma released trailer, I bet it is, isn't it?
Actually, I think that was a fan made.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Because the score for
it was
that,
just obviously way better than any of the original stuff.
Because first of all, the audio mix on the narrator sounds like every other Trauma acquisition trailer that they make, where it's like not mixed quite right into the trailer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing to me is that is the same music that's used in like the trailer for Class of Nukem High. They use that music score in like 75% of their trailers.
Yeah, I think the only trailer they had was like a 3.5 minute clip, where there wasn't a...
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
So, anyway.
A bloodthirsty visitor from outer space crashes his spaceship near the small town of Perry Hall and embarks on a gory rampage. Sheriff Jack Cinder has to coordinate an evacuation when the alien attacks. First and hopefully last time watch for me. Not horrible. I will say this. It has some funny like electric shock special effects. It has some nudity. It's not all bad. But again, the stuff like the explicit gore and full nudity, I guess, when I was going through the trivia, were filmed after principal shooting just because they needed to pad out their running time and wanted a reason for people to watch this. The killer is what, I mean, the beast, the Night Beast himself, I think is what I assume everybody knows this movie for. He looks like, I don't even know what, looks like a turd that was microwaved too long. Because dehydrated dog shit with teeth. I mean, it's not god awful. It's at least short. It's only an hour and 20 minutes. That's the highest praise you can give it, is that it's short. And when I saw the trauma thing at the beginning, I'm like, yeah, we're watching a turkey episode. This is what I know I'm getting into. So, what'd you guys think?
But it's not. It's not.
It was
I mean,
just
it's a
one of
trauma
their acquisitions.
acquisition.
They didn't make it.
Yeah, but it's not even
Right.
an original acquisition. This is like he bought out some of Don Dohler's catalog after Don's death, and I don't know how that went down, how he got his hands on some of Don Dohler's films, but yeah, this movie existed long before Troma got their hands on it.
It was picked up before Don died, because in the interviews on the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, Don talks about it getting re-released by Troma.
Oh yeah, I think
because the commentary track, I watched the movie, then I listened to the commentary track, then I watched all the interview footage, so I was knee-deep in Night Beast. But the commentary and some of the archival features are actually from that original Troma DVD.
Yeah, you're right.
He talks about being baffled as to why anyone still wanted to hear him talk about it.
Jason, you can go ahead and then.
Oh yeah, this movie's not for me.
That's it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you guys want from me. I don't want to be negative, but yeah. I thought his disco suit was funny.
Yeah.
That was the guy who played Jamie. That was his motorcycle rain suit.
Oh, I meant the aliens.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that suit was a motorcycle rain suit.
Oh. Didn't enjoy it. Thought it was terrible. Trying to be nice. Wasn't for me.
All right. Brian, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, think about the story of Don Dohler is so cool. how he got into making films and stuff. So it's just, yeah, okay, sure. Objectively, the movie's not very good, but I love watching stuff like this. Back in the days before shot on video and it was all handmade and you still had to shoot on film. Like, it took a lot of fucking effort to make a on film releasable movie, get distribution. Like, I don't know. There's something charming about Don Dohler's older movies. I don't care so much for like the Skinamax type shit he did in the 90s, but
Yeah.
these old ones are so much fun. And that the microwave turd monster mask, that was I'm fairly certain it was sculpted by John Dodd, the guy who made the creatures for Deadly Spawn.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I know on my Deadly Spawn DVD there is an old.
That's right, because he's got the head sitting next to him in the interview.
Yeah, in his apartment. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and there's a lot of okay, so the people who didn't like the movie, I wouldn't recommend it, but I would say definitely pick up the Vinegar Syndrome disc if it's still in print, because the extras are totally worth watching. It's funny, in the commentary track, they talk so much about the visual effects guy who went on to work on like some stuff on the Sci-Fi Channel, and they never mention J.J. Abrams. But in the interviews, then they do, and they actually have J.J. on the interviews in the disc too, talking about it. So that was kind of neat how that this was his start in movies, was doing music for this. So some of it was library music, some of it wasn't. But my favorite part of the movie is when the sheriff, who looks like a poodle,
that
With a
with
mustache.
yeah.
is talking like right when they find out that there's a monster killing people, and they get like they try to battle it and they get routed the first time. He's like, we're not going up against this thing again until I get Bill Peterson or what. I don't think that's right, but I forget the guy's name. Like, we got to get Bill Peterson. He's a crack shot. I got to have him on my team. And they just go on and on about what a badass this guy is. And you expect when he shows up that he's going to be like, this Rambo special forces guy with a machine gun and a sniper rifle and bombs. And when he, the next scene he shows up, and he's this fucking 80-year-old Elmer Fudd-looking guy with a deer rifle, who then is completely ineffectual and just dies. Oh my god, it's so much fun. And I think even they knew he was ridiculous, because there's outtakes on the disc too. And the first chunk of the outtakes is just people flubbing lines, the usual stuff. But then right at the end of it, there's a couple of minutes of footage where they're just like goofing around, and it'll either be people like doing silly stuff on set, like there's one of the monster doing some like weird disco dance. But they cut to that shot of that Elmer Fudd guy, and somebody is like dubbing over and like, yeah, I'm gonna get that alien, like doing a silly voice for it. Yeah, I like Night Beast. It's a lot of fun. I used to have the old like pre-Troma VHS of this, and I sold it years ago. I kind of wish I still had it now.
I've still got my VHS.
Damn.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's in my notes. The first time seeing this movie, there was this new rent-to-own type of store in town, and I don't know why I was there, but they had a small rack of VHS tapes for sale, and I'd pick one up every chance I could get from that place. The rack was filled with 75% movies from the Paragon video label. I wish, in retrospect, I bought all of them.
Right? You could retire.
Yeah, exactly. But this was a blind buy based on a trailer that I saw on other Paragon releases, probably their release of Gates of Hell, because their trailer loop was always the exact same thing on every single one of their tapes. And Night Beast was one of them. So yeah, I'm so proud that I still have my Night Beast VHS, and those Paragon VHSs, yeah, they go for a pretty penny. But so that's where I first watched it, is my old VHS. And I've seen it several times since then. Don Dohler, I like him as a filmmaker. He's probably my second favorite Baltimore filmmaker. Obviously, John Waters is number one. Just, that he is a monster kid. He's a famous monster. He's a Filmland magazine kid that had the passion for it so much that, like, his passions, he tried to create stuff with. Like he founded quite a few different different magazines. He started with a magazine called Wild, which was a Mad Magazine style book, and then he also launched.
He did some underground comics with R. Crumb too.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then he launched Cinemagic Magazine, which is really what got him into like the behind the scenes of making sci-fi and horror films, and to the point where he decided he was going to do it. There's a really good documentary about him called Blood, Boobs, and Beasts that I recommend checking out if you have any interest in this no budget underground, just do it yourself type of filmmaking.
For it being no budget, everybody seemed to have unlimited bullets against a monster who cannot be stopped with bullets. They never have to reload their ammo. They just open fire on a character they know will not die from bullets. It's like, fuck it.
And never hit him once.
and the sound effects for every one of those gunshots was just Don Dohler going pew, pew into a microphone.
Well, I love how his lasers from his ray gun had different effects on, it'll like bounce off of rocks, but then it'll totally disintegrate an entire car. Love how it's got that kind of power. One of the things I like about Don's films, especially these early films, is some of his repeat cast. Mm-hmm. I'm a George Stover fan.
Oh, yeah.
Who has also shown up in John Waters' movies. So always love seeing him on screen. There's a really good documentary about him too. That's like, oh my goodness, you would definitely have much more love and appreciation for this guy. Maybe not so much as an actor.
Like YouTube or something? I've seen the Don Dohler one, but I haven't seen the George Stover one. Is that available anywhere?
Yeah, it's on Tubi.
Nice.
I should have wrote it down. I can't remember the name of it, but I think if you just search John Stover, you should be able to find it. Yeah, it's a really good doc, and there's some interesting things about him that never knew. Like he was almost killed in a robbery on his house. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you may not appreciate his acting skills, but man, you would fall in love with this guy if you watch his documentary. Just such a sweetheart of a guy. And then Richard Driesel, also known as Count Gordeval.
Hell yeah.
He plays the mayor in this movie. So, it's a horror host guy. Gotta love it, So I appreciate that as well. So he would show up in quite a few of Don's movies. Anyway, but yeah, it's probably as bad as Tad and Jason say it is, but if you like that kind of cinema, I think it's a lot of fun.
Such a stark divide here of Tad and Jason. Like, I don't want to really have much to say because I don't want to be mean, and then you and I are just like gushing over Don Dohler.
Did you
talking about how much we love it?
Did you expect anything less than?
No, not at all.
Going into it.
Another neat thing that's on a feature on that disc too is, when the ship crashes at the beginning, that was done by a different couple of special effects people. Like some people who had worked on Alien Factor and stuff, but they weren't part of Don's regular crew necessarily. They did other effects too, or effects for other people. And they had done, when you see the Night Beast come out of the ship right before it explodes, they had originally done that as stop motion.
Oh wow!
Where it this little hatch on the top opens and you see it's just kind of in silhouette, but you see this little figure crawl out and spider crawl down the side of the ship and run off into the woods. And they didn't use it because they I guess Don didn't think it looked good enough or something, and then they did a full scale built the ship and then had the guy in the creature suit walk out of it. But I thought the whole stop motion thing was really neat.
Oh wow, yeah, I'd like to check that out. Absolutely. Sweet. Well, I don't know if there's probably any left, but Tad, do you have any trivia for this?
Yeah, Brian briefly mentioned it, but we sort of just blew over the fact that this is the first screen credit of J.J. Abrams. He was only 16, and he became aware of Don Dohler from articles in Cinemagic. And after they exchanged correspondence, Dohler asked Abrams if he'd be interested in scoring the film. While the film was shot in Baltimore, Abrams, who lived in L.A., mailed the tapes to Dohler. One little fun Easter egg, if you're a fan of Nick Cage in Mandy, Nick Cage and Andrea are seen watching this movie on TV
That's right.
while they eat dinner. And then Karen Kardashian's only role and nude scene, she was the hairdresser of Don Dohler's aunt. She found out about the film from his aunt and asked to audition. Dohler liked her and asked her to and cast her immediately. After principal shooting was completed, the distributor told Dohler the film needed nudity, so he went back to her and asked if she'd be willing to have a sex scene. He said in the DVD commentary that he found the task to be very awkward. To his shock and relief, she said sure, and on the day of filming, Dohler said she only had to be topless, but she said she wasn't shy and stripped all of her clothes off to film it fully nude. She told Dohler afterwards that it was exciting and a lot of fun. He also went to Monica Neff about filming nude, and she was more reluctant, but finally agreed and ended up going full nude as well. And that's trivia.
All right.
Always a fun conversation to have with actresses.
Yeah, not at all. Or especially when you have like a co-director who's like, "Oh yeah, she totally agreed to do it," and then you ask her, and she's like, "What?" That's a story for
Your
another
aunt,
day.
asking your aunt's hairdresser, like, so you can come in and shoot some nude scenes.
All right, Jason, what's our next movie?
Our next movie is from 1975. That's a great year, by the way. It's called The Giant Spider Invasion.
Look at that.
In a small Wisconsin town, something was about to happen that would send shockwaves around the world. They came from another world to destroy the Earth. It was the giant spider invasion. They came by the hundreds, by the thousands, killing and crippling, creeping, crawling creatures determined to destroy the Earth.
They're hell-bent on destroying that beast. The crowd's beginning to take over. Well, call the National Guard back. Tell them we need some heavy equipment, guns, tanks, anything.
Could anything stop them? Could anything stop the giant spider invasion?
After a black hole strikes, it opens up another dimension in a rural Wisconsin town, and soon there is an invasion of gigantic arachnids who crave human flesh. NASA scientists Dr. Vance and Dr. Jenny Langer try their best to save humanity as a romance blooms between them. Meanwhile, local Dan Kester squabbles with his wife, Eve, and has a dalliance with local bartender Helga. Yeah. It's a movie. It's just as bad as the last one.
I was going to say, we have to ask who watched it with
Yes.
the MST3K
Thankfully,
and who watched it without.
They gave me the out to watch it with MST3K.
I tried to be as kind to you with this
So
episode as possible.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But all my thoughts on the movie are about the MST3K stuff.
That's fine.
So
you can
I
talk about
forgot.
that.
My favorite line from the whole movie they did. Gosh, I don't know if you'll remember the part, but the scientists are walking. They're just kind of getting to the field. You know, they drive out to the field and they're walking around. They're almost getting up to the hill, but they're getting around. And then all of a sudden, the lady doctor falls. And they yell, "Plot hole!" And I about fell off the couch. I laughed so hard. It was just perfect.
Yes.
My favorite line was when they're walking outside and it says, "Such a nice day," and they're wasting it making this movie.
Yep, I know. I love that one too. So many good ones.
I'm a sucker, and I watched both. I watched it without and watched it with.
I liked a lot of the spider stuff. I mean, I was really happy when douchebag guy got 8. I'm like, they're not going to let him keep living, are they? I mean, he lived way longer than he should have. But then, yeah,
this guy's fitting.
But yeah, they did. I like how they kind of did it that way, right? You know, with eating him like that and seeing the big old legs come out of nowhere. Some of them times were pretty great.
Yeah, you squint just right. They're pretty realistic looking.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that we're in an era, the 70s, right, where there's a lot of animal attack type films, and a lot of them are, environmental messages where, 'cause some kind of chemical has caused the creatures to go wild or grow big or whatever, and there's the paper mill has been dumping chemicals in the water, but this one takes a completely unique angle for the time period, that these are spiders from another dimension. Like, they're not even like alien spiders or anything that's crashed to Earth. They're like from another dimension. A portal has opened up.
Totally ripped this movie off.
Oh, that's right. It did.
Is it just me, or it was a paycheck movie for Alan Hale, right? Because, like, he never got up from his desk. All he did was answer the phone with his shirt half undone, and it was like the laziest performance I've ever seen in my life.
I think I could determine what time you watched the movie, because I feel like I had this like weird shiver up my spine where you got to that moment of the movie, like we had this psychic connection of when he said "little buddy" at the very beginning of the movie.
Groan.
It's like, I know what this movie is. I know why I'm here, so we're going to say this line. We're going to do it.
Yeah, no.
Packers!
And that was...
So that was good throughout the episode doing
Tad
the Packers
loved that
stuff.
part, yeah.
Yeah,
the
that was fun.
Funny thing is, the guy who plays the scumbag farmer that gets eaten by the spider's butt, he's like a legitimate actor. Like, I'm pretty sure
Robert
he's won
Easton.
awards and like done Shakespeare and stuff.
Yeah, well, not in this one.
When I was watching the non-MST3K version, and Brandy stopped by, and I love how, she sat there and watched the last half of the movie with me, and I love how she's not even fazed anymore what she walks into when I'm watching.
Doesn't even bring it up, like just sits down and joins you.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Must be homework movie.
Oh, no, she realized, she was probably shocked that it was for the episode.
Yeah, this is a first time watch for me, and I watched it with MST3K because you gave me the option, and yeah, and that made it so much more enjoyable. I mean, I can't really say. I didn't watch it without it, so I don't know. But it's a fun, big, stupid rubber monster movie that is great to make fun of. I mean, I don't know it. I can't say I would enjoy it without the commentary, but it at least had, like, when the spider's on the screen, pretty silly but fun. So it had that going for it. Yeah.
So Brian's going to tell us how he's got a tattoo of the giant spider.
No, he was. I was just looking up Robert Easton. He was a Klingon in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country too.
Wow.
Yeah, like he's in a ton of legitimate stuff. It's crazy. I mean, obviously Alan Hale was too, but no, I actually watched this to MST too. I missed out when this came out on disc a few years ago, and I think it's out of print now, and I'm kind of kicking myself for that because I have the Arrow Bill Rebane box set, but this one isn't in there because it must be owned by a different licensor. But I'm hoping it gets reissued at some point so I can pick it up because but the MST episode is one of my favorites. Like, it's another one that I can just quote like almost the whole damn thing because I've watched it so many times. So that's how I rewatched it. I actually in college, when I'd answer the phone in my dorm, I'd frequently answer it as either doughy has-been or pork vacuum, and I would get a lot of confused silences at the other end of the line. Like, is this Brian? Yeah, it's me. Go ahead. But, you know, it's interesting. We kind of got a regional filmmaker thing going on for Turkey Day this year. We got the Baltimore one, and then we got the Wisconsin one. I'll have to do some William Griffey movies next year. But, you know, this is another one where it's just a scrappy little upstart who, you know, is completely outside the Hollywood system, just making movies for local release that, you know, wound up later on having kind of a following. But Bill Rebane's movies are I think they're always entertaining. I actually like them more than Don Dohler's movies. They're a little more polished.
Oh yeah, they're definitely way more polished. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little more to the effects. I mean, yeah, okay, you can laugh at the silly spider puppet or whatever, but again, imagine with no studio resources, no real, you know, necessarily professional effects people. Just okay, we could have written this movie where we just had regulars. It could have just been the spider invasion, but nope, we don't know really what the fuck we're doing, but we're going to make a movie that requires us to build a giant monster. And they mounted it on a fucking Volkswagen Beetle so they could make it move around and all the legs move independently. I'm sure that was really difficult. Maybe it doesn't look up to the standards of a Hollywood production even at the time, but damn it, they tried, and it looks pretty goddamn good for what they had to work with, I think.
Yep, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're not going to get any argument from me on that. But give more context for the filmmaker Bill Rebane. He also did movies like Capture of Bigfoot, Monster Go-Go, which is another good MST3K episode, a film that he didn't complete, so Herschel Gordon Lewis bought the rights to it and completely re-edited it and overdubbed it. And probably most famously, the Tiny Tim vehicle, Blood Harvest.
Oh, yeah.
I think his best movie is probably The Alpha Incident.
I've always wanted to check that one out. I've never seen it.
It's a really neat kind of a riff on the Andromeda strain. There's some really fantastic gore exploding head effects because in that one the space virus makes your head blow up.
Sweet.
So there's some like cool scanners type head explosions in it. But one of my personal favorites of his is Twister's Revenge. Have you seen that one?
No.
It's like Knight Rider, but with a talking monster truck that fights a tank at the end.
Oh.
It kicks ass.
Sold. Take all my money. Awesome. Okay, so trivia for this one.
The film was supposed to include a shot of a big spider in a tree bursting into flames. The director covered a large prop spider with gunpowder and had 2 crew members sit above the tree, waiting to drop a match on the spider. He got the camera set up very fast, frame per second, to achieve a slow motion look and had them drop the first match. Nothing happened. So they dropped the second match. Still nothing happened. So they lit the entire book of matches and dropped it on the spider. Still nothing happened, and the director turned off the cameras. Just as the huge explosion and fireball shot up, burning the hair off the crew members and starting several smart brush fires. Director was furious that he wasn't able to get the shot on film. There was also supposed to be a dramatic shot of the giant spider crushing the house by having the spider drop from a crane onto it while a bulldozer chained to the back of the house would pull away. However, when the shot was filmed, the spider's legs all went straight up into the air. The crew inside working its arms were nearly killed when broken wood from the demolished house went through the spider, coming close to impaling them. And then in a scene depicting the giant spider attacking the Little League baseball game, the spiders are obviously Volkswagen Beetles with puppet legs attached, because you can see the tire marks in a lot of the shots. Oh, and the framework for the giant, one of the giant Volkswagen giant spiders was recently found in the woods and put on display in Gleason, Wisconsin. So we should all road trip and check it out.
Like, yeah, you can mock that and it sounds ridiculous, but if you were making this money with a prescribed film's budget, how else would you make a giant spider move?
Hell yeah.
You know?
Hell yeah.
It's pretty brilliant.
I say ask Brett Royer, because isn't he making a giant spider movie?
That's right.
That's true. Not quite that big, though.
Yeah.
And even his took a while to make. So.
Brett should watch this.
Yeah. Anybody got a Volkswagen to borrow?
All right, awesome. So, Brian, what's the next film we're talking about?
Oh, the last movie for tonight is a fantastic documentary called Blood and Flesh, The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson.
The chilling story proving life can be stranger than fiction.
This story reads like the plot of a bad horror movie, except this is real. And the victim, believe it or not, was a horror film director.
Macabre death, UFO docudrama.
The mystery.
Horror movie director ends up in a horror movie scenario. I just couldn't believe it.
Al Adamson. Like, who was this guy?
My claim to fame as a director, we put more on the screen for the amount of money spent than anybody else did.
Dracula versus Frankenstein.
How many ways can you distort the human mind?
What other director worked with Colonel Sanders, Charles Manson, bikers, and porn people?
A lot of breasts, blood and gore.
He was the king of B movies.
Anybody that says that, oh, some of Al Adamson's movies were good, no, they were not.
Look at some of your great directors. They have never made 32 films.
Obviously, he wasn't a great director. You know, a lot of directors start off making B movies, but they usually graduate.
I try to train him how to direct, how to act, how to edit. He wasn't good at any of them.
Inflamed to madness and murder by the wild, provocative young bodies of the Go-Go Girls.
Any of you say anything bad about me, you're lying.
He cheated me all the time.
You had all these people that hadn't paid because it was experience for them.
We represented something he needed, youth, energy, and he was providing something we all needed a lot, opportunity.
Human zombies in blood of ghastly horror.
His business associate and his family always heard from him at least 2 or 3 times a week.
We're looking all over the country. Maybe he was kidnapped.
We're trying to tell the family everything will be okay, but we don't really know.
Are we filming?
We are filming, yes.
And I'm lying in bed and I'm saying, Al, I don't know where you are. If you're sick, if you're dead, if you're whatever, you've got to give me a sign.
Wild beyond belief.
You can't afford to miss. The shocking scenes you're about to see are not suggested for the weak or immature.
Oh, that was almost the entire movie in the audio of that trailer. Damn.
Yep.
So, yeah, this documentary tells the story of one of my favorite Schlockmeister directors, Al Adamson. He was the son of a guy named Denver Dixon, who was a silent movie Western star from Australia or New Zealand. And his mom was an actress in those movies, too, so that's how his parents got together. And so he came up around movies and being in Hollywood, so naturally he got into it. And his dad's actually in a couple of his movies. I think he's in Five Bloody Graves, which is actually quite a good Western. That's one of his earliest movies. You know, for a given value of good, you can't say like, oh, this is as good as The Searchers or something, because no, fucking, of course it's not. It was made for $5 out in the desert, but you know, for being made for $5 out in the desert, it's pretty damn good. So he had a pretty long career, you know, kind of following all kinds of trends. When biker movies were big, he made biker movies. When blaxploitation movies took off, he made a few of those, including a fantastically goofy one called Black Samurai, which is an adaptation of, you remember like back in the days when they'd have these series of men's adventure novels like Alan Quatermain and Doc Savage and all that kind of stuff. There was a series of books called Black Samurai about it, Black Samurai, and so he made a movie of one of those with Jim Kelly from Black Belt Jones, which is fantastic. You know, he loved getting old stars that were kind of past their prime and bringing them back for, you know, both for a little marquee value, but also because he really liked all of these people and wanted to give them work, kind of like, you know, what Ed Wood did with Bela Lugosi. Put John Carradine in almost all of his movies, and that's a pretty surefire way to get me to want to watch your movie, because I love John Carradine. But and we were talking earlier about, you know, people working with kind of their group of friends who are always in all of their stuff, like George Stover was with Don Dohler, and so Al Adamson, you know, he partnered with Sam Sherman as his producer, so they worked together all the time. Early on, his muse was sort of like Lena Romay was to Jess Franco. He had Vicky Volante, and when she moved on, then he met and married I want to say Carolyn Brandt, but that's the woman who worked with Ted Mickles. But Regina Carroll, there you go. So there's a Carol in there. I was close. But and then later on, after he'd sort of gotten out of the movie business, he hired a guy named Fred Fulford to do some work around his home, just as a contractor. This guy was a drifter, and he just showed up at his door asking for work. And Al was a kind of a big softie, so he took pity on the guy and gave him some work, and they became, Al thought, friends. But this guy started acting like him, dressing like him, doing his hair like him, kind of making it seem like he was trying to take over his identity and personality, and wound up beating Al to death with a hammer and burying him under his hot tub, like tore the hot tub out and then buried him in the floor and filled it in with concrete. So met a pretty terrible end. But this documentary is fantastic because so many of the people he worked with, at least at the time, were still alive. So they got all these interviews with Robert Dix and Bud Cardos and all these actors who used to work with him. And of course he was a skinflint because he made fly-by-night B movies, and so like notoriously when they were shooting, a movie called The Fakers that then he turned back into another movie called Hell's Bloody Devils, because that was another thing he'd love to do, is he'd make a movie about one thing and then say, well, hey, we can turn this into a biker picture or a horror picture or whatever, and shoot like 10 minutes of new footage and then slap that on there, whether it made sense to edit it in where he did or not, and retitle it. But on that movie, he struck a deal with Colonel Sanders that Colonel Sanders could be in the movie and promote KFC if they got free KFC. And by the end of filming, the crew was almost in revolt because all they ate for like a month was just every fucking meal was fried chicken. I love Al Adamson's movies. He's like I said, he's one of my favorite schlocky directors. He was one of my introductions to the world of weirdo B movies, actually, because I rented Dracula vs. Frankenstein when I was a little kid, not knowing who Al Adamson was, not knowing that, I was young enough that I didn't even understand that there were different levels of budget and quality and professionalism to movies. It was, when you're a little kid, you just think a movie's a movie. And however it is, it was made by adults who know how to make movies, so clearly this is how it's supposed to be. But even as a kid, I can still remember watching Dracula vs. Frankenstein and thinking, this doesn't look like other movies. This doesn't sound like other movies. This is like something from another dimension. It's so weird. And I haven't seen every one of his movies yet, but I do have that box set that Severin put out, so I've been working my way through that, especially since you said we were watching this documentary for the podcast, and I watched it when it had originally come out. Mm-hmm. But I revisited it, and it just got me all charged up to watch his movies all over again. So I watched Hell's Bloody Devils the other night, and I watched Horror of the Blood Monsters a couple of weeks ago. And it just really got me in the mood to get back and watch the rest of his movies.
Well, sweet. Awesome.
Yeah, it's best movie of the night. This is not a movie; it's a documentary. So thank God.
I figured you'd be all right with a documentary.
Yeah, and this one's cool because like it sells you on it's going to be this true crime thing, but then they get you in, they start it that way, and then you get 3/4 of the movie is just Al Adamson history and his growing up, which is awesome. A great way to get that to people, and then it comes back at the end and tells the true crime part, which is fucking sad.
God, yes, yeah.
How old was he when he went? Ooh. I mean, he seemed up there, so
70s, I think.
Had a good life, but god dang.
Yep. What a rough way to go, though.
Yep.
No matter how long you live, your death shouldn't be
right.
bludgeoned with a hammer.
No.
Nope. And buried in the floor of your own house.
But yeah, I'm so glad that I watched this, so now I don't have to watch any of his movies. This great. So
didn't it make you want to even a little bit? Like, because they show so much of the really wacky footage. Like, none of that stuff just kind of
it reinforced my already
going, that looks fun.
Reinforced my already feelings of no thanks.
How are we friends?
I know. It must be Transformers. I don't know what it is.
It's Transformers.
Yeah.
I like Godzilla stuff.
It's Doctor Who.
No, that's not it.
Oh.
Thanks a lot, jerk. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, with all of these films, I'll just say this. With all the films tonight and all of what seem to be Al Adams' films that I hopefully never see, the heart is there, and that's what's the best part about them. And I can see why a person could like them, but yeah. But so you could see that in his films, so that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, this is a great doc. My first experience with Al Adamson was also as a small child. I remember it vividly at my sister's house. It was a Saturday morning. Somebody must have been doing some like schlocky horror marathon or something on some UHF station or whatever. But I remember turning on the TV right at the final battle, right there at the end of Dracula versus Frankenstein. And just in awe what I was seeing. I feel like kind of the same thing, maybe the same reaction you were having, Brian, of like, this doesn't look quite like movies that I know.
The TV guide says it's this, but...
And the fact that I'm seeing, probably for the first time, two iconic horror creatures fighting each other to the death was like just cool and like awe-inspiring, but it's just something really often weird about it that almost was kind of like frightening in a way too, and not knowing for decades what the hell this movie was, and then like, you know, later in life figuring it out. What's weird too is that I just realized during when you were talking, Brian, that I remember, because my copy of Dracula versus Frankenstein is the Trauma DVD release. So it's like, oh, this is another filmmaker that somehow Trauma got their hands on and did re-releases of their stuff on DVD.
Yeah, I had a bunch of those Trauma discs, and then when Severin put that box set out, I sold them all to help pay for buying the box set. But
yeah, I wish I had that box set, because there is a lot of Al's movies that I've never seen. That I really want to check out. So
well,
especially,
it's great you say that, because like as I'm watching this documentary, the whole time I'm like, oh, he's Lloyd before Lloyd. Like Lloyd
kinda
is doing what Al was doing, using the same people, super cheap, hustling, not paying anybody. Oh, you get to work for free because of exposure.
Yeah. Yeah, those who complained about fried chicken every day should feel better that they didn't work for cheese sandwiches on a Trauma set. But yeah, really good documentary. If I want to nitpick, just because I'm trying to think of other things to say about the documentary, so I'd say maybe interesting aspect of the film, but felt like it was a weird turn at one point in the documentary is when they're talking about the alien conspiracy stuff.
Yep.
It's almost as if they're trying to set up his death as part of this conspiracy, but then they don't really go anywhere with it. It just goes right into the facts of the case after that. And so it's like, why is that even in there? I mean, it's kind of it's interesting that he went down that rabbit hole and everything. And I kind of want to see that film he made, but...
One person they interview that is sort of like alluding to the fact that they didn't believe he was murdered.
Yeah.
Which is sort of weird.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, why is this here? Like, it seems pretty fucking clear cut what happened to him. It's a great documentary. It is weird that it's like 3/4 about his career and his legacy and all this fun stuff, and then it's like, and then this weirdo comes into his life and murders him. I mean, you can't not mention it.
I don't think
but
there's
it's
enough
like
story to the weirdo that you could make a whole movie about that. But I think the audience for this documentary is people like me and Mike who love Al Adamson already and want to hear these interviews and people talking about his career. Like the story of his death is fascinating too, but it's also really, like I said, it's brief, it's dark, and it's sad. Like I don't think I'd want to watch a whole movie about that. If that's what it was, I would have been spending the whole time going, why the fuck aren't they talking about his movies?
I think it's a good blend of both aspects because I feel like the first half is really set up for you to get to know this guy, get to know the movies he's making, get to know his motivation in life and everything. For the second half with the true crime part, for it to be more impactful, I feel like.
Yeah, because you get to not just get to know him, but you get to like him because other than a few people complaining about not getting paid, nobody has a single bad thing to say about him. By all accounts, he was an incredibly kind, sweet, just all-around good guy.
I feel like there's other aspects of it too, as far as his film career part of the documentary goes, that is also fascinating if you don't even care about the Al Adamson stuff, because you get the history of some of the well, not really the history, but some kind of some of the later in life tragic ends of some classic, the Lon Chaney stuff and the J. Carrol Naish stuff.
I fucking love that story about them going, what is that noise? We keep picking up this weird clacking, and his fucking dentures didn't fit right, and we're just flopping around in his mouth.
God, that story of how like all those people come in on the set and he's like, and they bring him in a wheelchair, and they're like, God, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like everything was going wrong. Everybody is like coming in is he can barely move. This person's in a wheelchair. This person's a drunk. It's low budget filmmaking, baby.
Yeah, and that's like why I love these kinds of movies so much. Like, yes, I just love the movies on their own too, but the stories behind them are so much more interesting. Like, who gives a shit about the making of a Marvel movie? A bunch of people stood in front of a green screen. It's so fucking boring. But these people who just have this drive, like, they gotta make movies. Like, Mike and Jason, like you guys' stories. Like, that's way more interesting than some successful Hollywood guy who never had a problem making a movie. You want to hear about these people overcoming these ridiculous obstacles and having to turn on a dime and figure, well, J. Carrol Naish is in a wheelchair. He's half blind. His dentures are screwing up our sound. How are we going to make a movie around this when we thought we were going to have this guy come in and be this crazy mad scientist, And the answer is usually we'll use stock footage of John Carradine. But
sometimes those flaws I feel like help. Now stick with me on this here. But
happy accident.
Yeah, the J. Carrol Naish stuff where, okay, he's got a glass eye, and then he also doesn't know any of his dialogue, so he has to read cue cards. So you watch those close-up shots of him, and one eye is darting back and forth, the other eye is just stagnant and still. Almost kind of adds, I feel like, to his character of this like super crazed mad scientist guy, where his eyes are just one eye is just darting back and forth, and you don't understand. I just feel like it adds to the level of insaneness of that character.
It makes it not just look like a guy reading cue cards, because that one eye that isn't moving just makes it so strange.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is Graydon Clark your dad?
No, but I don't think we're even related. But that would be pretty cool if we were.
That would be.
I would be very excited if I found out I was related to Graydon Clark.
Did you have more to add, Tad? I felt like there was a couple times we're cutting you off.
No. I mean, there's nothing bad to say about this one. It's a blast. I've seen the cover pop up on streaming services for years. That really cool poster, and never checked it out. And just seeing the history, like if you didn't even, it has so much more to add to it. Just seeing like the trends over the years and following those and trying to cash in on, like Brian said, like the biker movie into the monster movie into everything. Like you just have to appreciate everything that the hustle. You have to appreciate the hustle.
Yep.
It's like it didn't come naturally. It wasn't he was just a gifted guy who was handed something. Like, no, he made things happen and worked with what he had to. And but hearing all the stories about what a good person he was and how he treated everybody makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Okay, then what trivia do you have for this one, Tad?
None at all. There was not too much on the making of this, and I feel like with the documentary, it's like that is the
Yeah, all the trivia is in the film. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. With that said, then, that concludes the topic for this episode. Now, it wasn't that bad, now was it? So we're going to go and take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to finish off the show with our last two segments. First, you're going to hear a promo for our podcast network, the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. The PFPN is home to so many amazing shows, such as the Horrorcast. The Horrorcast is a group of 6 friends who review horror cinema, old and new. Check out one of the best horror movie podcasts, well, second best, on the web. You could check out the Horrorcast and all the other amazing shows at thepfpn.com. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to the show, and now it's time to hear from you guys, the listeners. Here's Jason with shout-outs.
It's time for shout-outs! 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 Shout-outs!
All right, we asked, what are your favorite bad horror movies? And I'm shocked we only got as many comments as we did, because you crazy kids and your bad horror movies. But up first, on the Facebook page, we got Attacker. Casey Kelderman says, bad horror movies, you say. How about bad channels? Did I answer this right? Yes.
It's so hard to agree with any of these that they're bad movies.
Bad.
That's just right.
And then Brian says, that Psychotic Symphony song rips. Psychotic.
Hell yeah.
That's the song where they're in a hospital and all the band, it's kind of like Kmart, Mr. Bungle.
Yes. Yeah.
And we got Attacker Tim Lenore says, hey, do you see that 55-gallon drum in front of you? The one that has worms stenciled on the side? Worms. So
I
bad.
assume he's talking about Squirm.
I couldn't figure that one out either. Maybe Squirm, maybe the Worm Eaters, maybe.
Jacob McLaughlin says, Zat just might be my favorite objectively bad movie overall.
That's a fun one.
That is a great one. One of the coolest underwater monster
Another one I
costumes.
picked up very, very young. I saw it under a different title. I can't remember what, but it was an Elvira Presents tape that I rented.
It's like the horrible Dr. Z or something like that, I think.
No, that's well, yeah, maybe it was that. I don't remember, but yeah, that was another one. It was a monster movie that wasn't rated R and was an older movie, so my mom let me rent it, and I just would rent anything with a monster in it. And it was the same experience like I was talking about with Dracula versus Frankenstein, where it's like, something is off about this. I really like it, but I don't understand why it doesn't look like it should.
Cooler underwater monster costume, Zat or Sting of Death?
Oh, Zat, easily. Sting of Death is just a guy in a garbage bag.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys. Up next, we got brand new attacker, Scott Reebsman. Welcome. Welcome, Scott, to the family. He says, I love trash in general, but Spookies, which I wholeheartedly agree is one of my least favorite fucking movies of all time.
Oh, why do you hate fun?
I fucking hate that movie. And Night of the Demon are up there. Yeah.
I'm assuming he means the awesome Bigfoot movie where he tears the guy's penis off. Yep.
Demon, singular. Yep. Up next, we got attacker Sam Land says, bad is so subjective. But I adore quite a few movies that the general public considers bad. A few are Rocky Horror Picture Show. It
was technically a flop when it first came out.
My Soul to Take.
No.
Rocky Horror.
Wes Craven, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Evil Ed. And, of course, Bring It On, Cheer or Die.
There it is.
Brian says, I was with you until die now. BS Bad is subjective. No place on my shelves. Blah, 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 blah. Read it. And then up next we got Nick Leadham says 2000 Maniacs.
Woo!
Bad movies. You support.
2000 Maniacs. I'm assuming he's talking about Herschel Gordon Lewis's original movie because the remake is 2001 Maniacs. But.
Frankenfish. Half of Jalo. Does pieces count? What pieces? All right. All right,
That's
and then
where you draw the line. Pieces is good, but you won't have any trouble.
He didn't. You notice he didn't finish that.
No,
sentence.
I didn't.
Oh.
Over in the Facebook group, we got attacker Abe Kirshner says The Pit.
Wait for it.
Movie.
And Meth Gator.
There it is.
It can't be good. It's called Meth Gator.
We've done a whole episode on their show about that.
I'm sure they have. And attacker Brad Royer says, bought this gem on VHS a couple years ago. The dub has black guys voicing the scrawny white scientists and guys doing all the girls' voices. It's hot garbage. That'll make you believe in the power of cinema again. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Zombie 90.
Another Andreas Schnaas movie. I would argue that one is not nearly as entertaining as the violent shit movies, though. there are really long stretches of that movie that are fucking boring.
Yeah. Zombie 90.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a drag, but I do love those. I do love the zombie shit God damn it, violent shit movies.
See, now you can make zombie shit.
I need to. That's perfect.
All right, and that's all the comments we have there, but we have a voicemail. Here we go.
Hey, everybody, Attacker Brian here, and I got a turkey movie for you. Or turkey, I don't even know what the hell you call these films anymore. But the movie I want to talk about is the low-budget holiday splash from 1978, Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, considered by some his worst movie, other than The Ward. This snorefest steals so much from the original holiday slasher film, Black Christmas. It does star Jamie Lee Curtis, who would go on to be in such classics as House Arrest from 1996 and Freaky Friday from 2004. She would finally reprise her role in 2018 in the Halloween franchise, and that film would add the action and story lacking in the original. I mean, this film had people smoking in the background. That's how bad their production was.
Oh my goodness.
Unfortunately, Donald Pleasance wasn't alive to see the masterpiece. That was the 2018 Halloween. And finally, some things I'm thankful for. All of my amazing friends at Attack of the Killer podcast.
That he lost.
And
Former
Hot
friends.
Bubble Bath. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and take care.
Oh, my, guys. I guess it's your chance to...
He just broke the internet with the amount of
He doesn't like
hate
that
he's
movie.
getting right now.
Tad, Brian?
No retort.
What?
I don't respond to trolls.
Oh, good policy. Good policy.
I love it. Keep it coming.
Well, that's right. Any of you can troll away. Oh, God. And give us a call. Leave your voicemail. Call us at 415-952-6857. That's 415-95-AOTKP. Leave us that voicemail, and we'll play it on the show. And that's shout-outs.
Though the lighting and plots may be murky, they have blood, beasts, and boobies so perky. They all entertain us. Their badness sustains us. 3 cheers for these cinema turkeys. And now here's Insane Mike Saunders with Insane's Picks.
All right, for Insane's Picks, this time I'm going to be talking about 2012's Don't Let the River Beast Get You, written by Matt Farley and Charles Roxburgh, directed by Charles Roxburgh. Matt Farley is a singer, songwriter, podcaster, and filmmaker. Matt has recorded and released over 25,000 songs under a variety of pseudonyms and band names, including The Toilet Bowl Cleaners, Paparazzi, and the Photogs, the Hunger Food Band, and the guy who sings songs about cities and towns. Oh, yeah, and one more. And the odd man who sings about poop, puke, and pee. Matt and Charles has co-directed and co-written and co-produced over 15 feature films. Don't Let the River Beast Kill You is about a vicious river monster who lurks in the woods just outside of a small New England town. Neil Stewart returns to town after leaving after his encounter with the river beast. No one believed him, so he skipped town, but he has come back. And he is constantly teased by the locals and harassed by the police. He sets out to prove the river beast's existence with the help of his friends. Matt and Charles have a unique style when it comes to filmmaking, with Matt's hilarious, quirky, overly written dialogues, such as having every character who is talked about in the film described by their full name and character description. The dialogue often reminds me of over-the-top dialogue of John Waters. One of my favorite laugh-out-loud moments is when a guy and girl are performing on a sidewalk. He's playing guitar and she's dancing for tips. They finish a song and she proclaims that to be all sweaty. So she reaches into her backpack, pulls out a handful of kitty litter, and tosses it into the air all around her, as she proclaims, "Kitty litter is the most versatile product on Earth." Don't Let the River Beast Get You is in full on YouTube. I highly recommend checking it out. And there you go. That's Insane's Picks. We should have watched that for the show.
Man, darn.
All right, so that concludes another episode of Attack of the Killer podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. If you want more Attack of the Killer podcast, we're on X. We're on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Discord. Be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. Oh my God, am I forgetting anything? We're just everywhere. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all next time on Attack of the Killer podcast.
Oh no, could this be the end of? Attack of the Killer Podcast. Attack of the Killer Podcast.